What is an interesting Bitcoin price to you right now, Samson? And
Maybe 0.25, but definitely zero point 0.5 M. That is where it really starts getting interesting. I think at zero point 0.5, we've reached half of gold. So that's when the train accelerates. So nothing stops the train, but the train accelerates at zero point 0.5. That's when you start massive demonetization of gold, real estate, and everything else, and it just gets sucked into Bitcoin. But I think it all happens very quickly because once you hit 0.25, zero point 0.5 is not far away, and then 1 is not far away. If you look at where things are going, like Fiat is definitely on its last legs, and it's possibly a few years away, maybe 5, maybe 10. Nobody knows for sure, but it's definitely not on an upward growth trajectory. So if you are alive today and you know about Bitcoin and you haven't learned about Bitcoin, it's almost all on you. There's no one to blame when hyperbitcoinization hits and you missed it because you didn't choose to learn a little bit more.
Bitcoin's rise towards $1 million won't feel slow or gradual. It will be sudden, violent, and fueled by the global recognition that fiat is dying. That's the latest outlook from Jan3 CEO, Samson Mow. According to Mouw, the real excitement for Bitcoin begins at $250,000. That's the first signal that the market is entering a new phase. Once Bitcoin moves toward $500,000, it reaches half the value of gold, and the pace of adoption accelerates. At that level, capital flows in faster than most expect. Gold, real estate, and other weak assets start bleeding into Bitcoin, and the path to $1 million a coin comes fast. Fiat currencies are on borrowed time, with perhaps 5 to 10 years left. When hyperbitcoinization arrives, those who ignored Bitcoin will face the reality of a massive wealth transfer already in motion. By then, the old financial system will have nothing left to offer. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video as Samson Mow explains how Bitcoin's path to hyperbitcoinization could trigger a massive wealth transfer, and why the biggest gains will go to those holding Bitcoin today.
It is gradually and then suddenly. And nobody knows exactly when suddenly hits, but you can definitely see the suddenly on the horizon with everything that's happening. I mean, ETFs alone are buying multiple times the mine supply of Bitcoin. Then you factor in the corporate adoption, which is accelerating.
Right.
Like, strategy is not buying less, they're buying more, and they're raising more every time. I think STRC upsized from $500 million to 2.5 billion. Metaplanet is increasing the velocity and size of their buys, and then you have new entrants coming in too. Adam Back has announced a BSTR with, I think, 30,000 coins committed. So nothing is slowing down. Everything is speeding up. So 1 million doesn't seem like it's a far away thing. There are a lot of people that theorize that, post-institutional adoption, we're seeing less volatility. It's going to be a slow slog. But I just don't see that. Not with the velocity of the buying that's happening on the market. Even 80,000 coins dropped on Sunday night barely made a dent. Like, Bitcoin is numb to all of this now. It's just going up. I think most people don't factor in that the economy of most countries in the world right now are not in a good state. And it could just be that retail is broke. And it's going to be institutional capital. It's going to be investors rotating out of other things like real estate and gold into Bitcoin. Or it's going to be pension funds that need to cover unfunded liabilities buying strategy or a strategy product. So maybe that's the thing. I'm not really sure, but I would just add a caveat that right now I would say we're overheated because you can see alts started to outperform Bitcoin temporarily. And in my recollection and experience, that's never a good thing. Usually we come back down, and then when Bitcoin dominance goes up, then we go back up again in a more healthy manner. I mean, there are always altcoin rallies, and then they always fizzle out. If you look at the history of crypto, it's like everything goes down over time. Nothing sustains, and that includes things like Ethereum. But they're so small now relative to Bitcoin, and so illiquid relative to Bitcoin that it is easy for people to pump them up. And that's maybe where the retail money is going because they see quick gains and then they're buying an alt. And then the alt drops and they get flushed out. And that cycle repeats over and over. That's why I think it's healthier if we go down a bit. Even Bitcoin goes down a little bit, flush out the alts, increase dominance, and then go up in a more healthy fashion. I don't think we've reached FOMO territory yet. And again, 0.25, 0.5, those are my interesting targets. But I did a calculation a few weeks back about the cost of eggs and inflation. And if you look at eggs alone, the real rate of inflation is something like 11%. And if you factor that in with our 2021 highs, adjusted for inflation, that's like 100K. So we're just kind of beating inflation right now, real inflation. And real inflation probably higher than 11%. Like that's just arbitrarily picking eggs as a baseline. But, that's not FOMO territory. FOMO territory is really outpacing inflation. And I think people will subconsciously know that when we get to, 0.2, 0.25. And then they're going to wake up and go, okay, well, I need to get into this now because it's meaningful now. But maybe subconsciously the market just knows we're more or less tracking inflation.
Bitcoin's path to $1 million won't be slow or gentle. According to Samson Mow, the move will feel like a sudden explosion, the result of years of pressure building quietly in the background. Institutional demand is now overwhelming the market. ETFs are absorbing multiple times the mined supply, and corporate buyers like MicroStrategy are increasing their positions with every raise. Even large drops in available coins barely move the price anymore, showing just how resilient Bitcoin has become. Mouw believes this is the early stage of hyperbitcoinization, where Bitcoin begins replacing weaker forms of money at an accelerating pace.
So hyperbitcoinization, if you don't know, is the point at which you don't need to sell Bitcoin anymore. It's like the meme from The Matrix where Morpheus asks Neo, what are you going to do when Bitcoin is $1 million? Like, you don't need to sell it. Right? It's just Bitcoin everywhere. But it's really just getting more Bitcoin adoption and making it so that you can just sit in Bitcoin and live your life in Bitcoin. I still think there's a lot of potential for countries to adopt Bitcoin in a big way. Well, there's always been interest and it waxes and wanes kind of with Bitcoin price and what's happening in Bitcoin. Every time the crypto space has a blow up like Terra Luna or FTX, that dampens a lot of our efforts because, Bitcoin becomes an unapproachable and undiscussable topic. So this is why it's important to spread also the message of Bitcoin only, because when you're playing with crypto, you're playing with fire, and these things usually don't end very well. But it does change from time to time based on market situation, but generally there is a lot of interest still. This has always been a big challenge with nation-state adoption, which is countries, governments move very slowly. There's a ton of red tape. I mean, if you've ever tried to renew your driver's license, you kind of get the sense of that, right? But it's like
I got to do it at the end of the month.
yeah, they want to do something, but it's not easy to do it. Even at the city level, it can be very challenging. So a friend of mine, Ken Sim, the mayor of Vancouver, has been pushing forward a proposal to have the city of Vancouver adopt Bitcoin as a reserve asset. But he's thinking that might be years away through going through committees and analysis and research and getting approvals all up and down the food chain. So it's not a simple thing unless you have control over the legislature, which most countries, that is not really a thing for the president or prime minister to have. There's a lot of discourse, a lot of consensus building, and again, a lot of red tape. So I think it's still possible that countries can adopt a reserve. It might be that they're waiting for the US and the Trump admin to do something, but I think smaller, more agile countries could potentially move faster. So we might see another Bitcoin treasury pop up. I think Pakistan has announced that they're setting something up, but maybe a few more. But we're actively pushing for that. But again, we're not pinning all of our efforts on that and our hopes on that, but rather starting with real projects to actually have on-the-ground adoption and then maybe the reserves come as a secondary thing. I mean, Argentina, Turkey,
Yeah.
there are many countries that seem on the brink of fiat collapse. And I think they're still hanging on. Um, Even the US is not looking that great right now. And I think
Right.
that is driving a lot of the initiatives right now. If you look at the US, they're embracing stablecoins because they have to. There's no other choice. Like nobody is buying their
Yeah.
US treasuries. Like Tether, I think is the like top 15 holder up there above many countries because there is no more demand. So if you look at where things are going, like fiat is definitely on its last legs, and it's possibly a few years away, maybe 5, maybe 10. Nobody knows for sure, but it's definitely not on an upward growth trajectory.
Do you think we'll ever see a government itself issue sovereign debt specifically to buy Bitcoin?
You'd think it's a no-brainer, and anyone with fiat money would just do that. But, you know, I think they would need to first make that foray into Bitcoin and set up a treasury. Like even setting up a reserve, a treasury, is a big challenge because the question is who holds the keys? Is it with a custodian? Is it with some multi-sig setup in the country? And that is like a big blocker in and of itself. So I think once you have that hurdle cleared, then it opens up the possibility of let's just print the fiat and buy Bitcoin. But I think to reach that stage as a government, you have to already have decided like fiat is over. And to get there, you have to really understand Bitcoin at a fundamental level and deep level. So I think we're a ways away, even though for us as Bitcoiners, it's a no-brainer. And if we had access to a infinite money printing machine, we'd be doing that already. I mean, you could argue that Sailor's already doing that with strategy. In this day and age, there's just so much information. You have documentaries, you have movies, you have, I don't know, hundreds of books now about Bitcoin. It's just so easy to learn if you're willing to learn compared to back when I learned about Bitcoin, where there was very little information. There's no podcast, like maybe one. That was what it was like back then. So if you are alive today and you know about Bitcoin and you haven't learned about Bitcoin, it's almost all on you. There's no one to blame when hyperbitcoinization hits and you missed it because you didn't choose to learn a little bit more.
Hyperbitcoinization is the point where Bitcoin stops being an investment and becomes the default way to hold and spend money. You no longer think about selling it because everything is priced in it. Samson Mow describes it as the phase when the global financial system quietly concedes defeat to Bitcoin. Nation-states are already inching closer to this reality. El Salvador proved it can be done, and smaller, agile countries are exploring reserves and pilot projects. Every new wallet, every treasury allocation, and every pilot program accelerates the shift. Once governments realize fiat is in terminal decline, the leap to buying and holding Bitcoin becomes unavoidable. When that inflection point arrives, adoption will spike and the price will respond violently. Hyperbitcoinization will not wait for everyone to be ready. Those who hesitate will wake up in a Bitcoin world with no cheap entry left. If you want to stay most up to date on the crypto and Bitcoin world, subscribe to my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's a concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis, trusted by over 90,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stay informed in the crypto market. The link is in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and that it gave you some value. I'll see you all at the next one, and as always, all the best.